Chapter 6. The villagers in Ipping heard shouts and shrieks coming from the crowd that was running away from the coach and horses. But the curious villagers began running towards the inn, eager to learn what all the excitement was about. Once Mrs. Hall was a safe distance away, she collapsed in her husband's arms as the crowd tried to explain the eerie happenings. "It was a man without a head. It was some magician's trick. It was an evil spirit sent by the devil himself." "Hold up there," called a voice from the rear of the crowd. It was Mr. Jaffers, the village constable. "He's inside. The man without a head," called Mr. Hall. "Well, head or no head, Hall, I'm here to arrest him." Hall led the constable inside and up to the stranger's room. "Do your duty, constable," he said, flipping open the door. Jaffers marched in with Hall following. "That's him," said Hall, pointing to a headless figure holding a piece of bread and a chunk of cheese in his gloved hands. From the emptiness above the collar of the figure came an angry demand. "What's the meaning of this?" "I'm here to do my duty and arrest you, head or no head," said Jaffers. "Stay away from me," warned the invisible man, backing away from the constable. Suddenly the food dropped. Off came the stranger's left glove, and Jaffers found it slapping him in the face. The constable managed to grip the man by his handless left wrist and clutched his invisible throat. Despite a hard kick on his leg, the constable held on. The two men clutched and hit each other until both crashed to the ground. "Grab his feet," shouted Jaffers. But before Hall could help, a hard kick in the ribs sent him flying against his wife's favorite cabinet. Jaffers managed to pin the headless man down, then get on top of him, but he soon found himself rolled over on his back. The stranger stood up over the constable and quietly said, "I surrender." Then he pulled off his right glove. Two invisible hands then quickly opened the buttons along the front of his jacket. The jacket and trousers stooped over and began fumbling with his shoes and socks. Standing above the stooped-over stranger, Hall exclaimed, "He's not a man at all. Look inside his collar and into his clothes. It's all emptiness inside." He tried to push his hand into the open blankness, only to pull it back suddenly with a cry of pain. "I wish you'd keep your fingers out of my eyes," came a voice from somewhere above the clothes. "I'm all here, head, hands, legs, and all the rest. It happens that I'm invisible, but that doesn't give anyone the right to poke me to bits or to arrest me." By now, several other villagers had come into the room and they heard the constable announce, "I'm arresting you on charges of breaking into a house and stealing money. And I need to handcuff you too." "Nonsense," cried the invisible man. "I'll come along to prove my innocence, but I will not allow handcuffs." "But I have my orders, and it's the proper procedure," protested the constable. The invisible man suddenly sat down, and before anyone realized what he was doing, he had kicked off his shoes and socks, then pulled off his trousers. The jacket began shaking itself loose from the shirt under it when Jaffers suddenly understood what the invisible man was doing. "Here, stop that, I say," he ordered as he reached out and pulled at the jacket, only to have it slide off in his hands. "Hold him," he cried to the others. "If he gets his shirt off too, we'll never find him." But a moment later, a fluttering white shirt was rushing around the room. It swung around in front of Hall and planted a hard blow in the man's face. Then it lifted itself up as if it were being pulled over a man's head. Jaffers made a grab for it, but succeeded only in helping to pull it off. In return, he was smashed in the mouth by an invisible fist. By now, every arm in the room was striking out, hitting at the air or at each other's faces or heads. Cries of, "Hold him!" and "Don't let him get away!" filled the room. The furious swinging and hitting continued, causing bloody noses, black eyes, broken teeth, and smashed jaws. Suddenly, Jaffers yelled, "I've got something!" The struggling crowd shot out into the hallway as Jaffers pushed his way through, holding tightly to his invisible prisoner. Then a hard kick forced his knees to crumple under him, and he loosened his hold on the invisible man. He felt himself being pushed down the steps and hitting his head on the hard stone floor, where he lay, unconscious and bleeding. A woman standing in the inn doorway felt something push her aside. A dog in the road yelped as something kicked it, and an old man on a bicycle was thrown off into a ditch by an unseen force. The invisible man had made his escape.